Hi everyone, this is Maria Hocking, the UK Life Changer, today delivering episode 1 of the Happiness Hit, where we bring you hope, we bring you inspiration, so that you can see the possibility of transformation. And so today we'll be exploring the mind of the lovely Thurstan Crockett, who's going to share his wisdom with you with regards to happiness. So Thurstan, over to you. Please tell us what you do and why you do what you do.
I am a coach. I use intuition and a sense of really getting to grips with limiting beliefs and neutralizing them as a way of coaching. I'm sort of life coach. I do a bit of what you do, but differently. And I also run retreats. And at the moment, particularly down in West Penwith, under the banner In Through the Outdoors. Which is a powerful way of looking at things. I also work as a mentor and a support worker for young people who are struggling. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's good. So you've obviously got a lot of experience here with regards to happiness and transformation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to fire some questions at you, Thurstan, because we want to really explore your mind today, obviously.
Yeah.
So my first question to you is a really broad question, and that is, what do you believe about happiness?
I believe that happiness is a birthright. I think we all deserve to be happy as humans. I think it's quite a natural state. I think in innocence, children are naturally happy. Yeah. And that's been my experience of being in different places around the world, that even in some of the toughest situations, children want to play, they want to be happy, and that's their state. I think there's also something for me about connecting in life with our inner child or our golden child. So I often ask clients, what did you love doing when you were a child?
Yeah.
You know, what do you love doing every opportunity you get? And for me, that's being in the sea. And I only have one rule with that, which if I'm thinking of going for a swim, I never don't. Right. I always go for a swim.
Yeah.
Because I've never yet not enjoyed it.
Right.
So I think it is about a full expression of what we love doing in the world, and allowing nothing to get in its way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I love that, allowing nothing to get in its way. But obviously for some people, things do get in the way, you know,
Yes.
and we do lose that happiness. And I agree with you, we are all born happy, you know, it's our birthright. But you know, what happens, do you think, for people to lose that happiness? You know, what happens for them to lose connection with that and their joy? And
well, to start with, every individual, I believe, carries wounds from childhood. Everybody has a time when their total beautiful golden child innocence has something shattered. It is part and parcel of early childhood, and what we make up about those incidents, what we make them mean, can cloud the rest of our lives. So for many people, in my experience, they carry limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And those limiting beliefs have a very strong hold. They're unconscious. They're quite visceral. So that I've just been working with somebody who wasn't allowed to fully express herself at all in her childhood, and the result is that you know, she can't. In some ways, in some respects, she can't in adulthood. And so I see that as a big factor, and then, you know, a whole raft of life events play out that can also have a big impact. So I
was just going to ask if you could give like us an example for anybody watching this now. So how could you give like one example of this? So, you know, like an example of someone who goes through a particular something in childhood, then starts to believe something. Could you sort of like connect the dots for us here, as in give us the
I mean, my own example would be I was passed around a lot amongst different carers, including my mum when I was little. And then at 7, I was sent away to a boarding school from a relatively secure, loving, happy environment. And I made up about that at some level, that I was wrong and unlovable.
Right.
And that has meant every relationship I've been in since, I've felt a fear that it was going to go wrong, and that I needed to leave the love somehow.
Right.
And that has had a big impact on my life and on my sense of stability. And at some level, I still think I'm not lovable. I know it's not true. But it's what I made up. And at some deep level grew to believe. And those things have a hold.
They do have a hold. And I think, what you said there is what you made up. And I don't think we realise, do we, the impact of these things that we make up. And like you say, we're not consciously aware at the time that we're making these things up. But I guess we do the best we can with the knowledge and the resources that we have to interpret that situation or interpret what we believe about ourselves. And so what would you say to people watching this right now who are maybe thinking who have these limiting beliefs about themselves, that believe they're not good enough, or they're not lovable, or they're not clever enough, or they'll never be enough? What would be your advice to people like that?
Yeah, I think, well, two things. One is to get to study a bit and get to see those limiting beliefs for what they are. And get a sense of where they came from. And that they are limiting and they're not real. I mean, they feel real, but that actually, in the next moment we can choose. We have choice. We can decide. We don't have to be constrained by them. Neutralizing them, it isn't easy. But it is within everybody's grasp.
Right. I love that expression, neutralizing them. So how would someone go about neutralizing something they have made up about themselves that isn't serving them?
Yeah, I mean, in its most simple way, for me, it's about seeing it as it is, but having a sense of bigger vision, bigger purpose, and really connecting with that and the emotion of it. And having that being the compelling draw, acknowledging that this stuff has played out and goes on, but then still choosing that and connecting with a sense of innocence and intuition, and applying will. So okay, I made all that stuff may be going on, but that's what I want, and I'm going for it.
Right. Okay.
And an example of that, was even last year when I didn't have the money to come on your retreat in Sweden, but I'd made a choice that I choose an Arctic adventure. And when it came up, I thought that's what that looks like. And then through some sort of I don't have the capacity belief, I thought, no, I can't have that. I don't have the money at the moment. It's not, and I didn't book. And I so regretted it for months. And then you said, oh, a place has come up. And I went, right, it's mine. And then I'll borrow the money, which I did. And then I'll make it happen. I'll find the kit. And it was one of the greatest choices I made. Fantastic.
Brilliant, and it was a great time. For those of you watching, Thurstan came to Fire and Ice in Sweden last year, so unleash your potential through adventure. So snowmobiling, huskies, personal development, building snow holes, and Thurstan,
one of the greatest weeks of my life. I just loved it. Thank you.
And I think that was all about stepping out of our comfort zones, wasn't it? That experience for many people. And I think talking about comfort zone, I think there is a real misconception with the word comfort in the term comfort zone. And we sometimes live a limited life, being comfortable and playing safe, if that makes sense. But if we continue living life playing safe and living restricted, it might be comfortable short term, but at the end of our life, I believe that it'll be very uncomfortable, because we will look back and think, look back with regret. So what do you believe about stepping outside of your comfort zone, the benefits of it?
Yeah, it's really good to spot there that comfort isn't necessarily as we see it with lots of squashy cushions and all the rest of it. It's our default. Yeah. It's where we go to in sort of second nature, which is to do what we know and know what we do. Yes. And keep it the same. Yeah. Really interesting stuff about the study of time. The reason lockdown seemed to whiz past in some ways for many people was that we did the same old every day, and yeah. our brains just recognized that nothing much new was coming in. Right. Which is why being out and in nature was so important. So in order to stimulate the brain and have some sort of sense of really living and being alive, yes. Doing different, yeah. And then exploring beyond that what we'd really love that in some ways might not seem possible, but going for it is a key to happiness. Yeah. It is absolutely, and that might even be tiny things like changing the route that we walk, that we always go the same way, yeah. Or stopping to talk to somebody, or tiny things can do it. Yeah. And for me in lockdown, it was being out every day in that beautiful hot spring, yeah. Seeing something different happening in the unfolding of spring. Yeah. And it was one of the most magical springs I can ever remember. It was so
amazing,
fantastic, yeah. And I took so much joy from that. Yeah. That gave me happiness. Anything else could be happening, and it was, and there were awful things happening. Yeah. But in those moments, I felt a real happiness.
Yeah. And I think you said you experienced that in lockdown, and I think the current pandemic and lockdown has taught us a lot. There's a lot of challenge for a lot of people. There's a lot of bad news kicking around at the moment, but I also feel that a surge of massive hope and massive change for people. Yes. And I'm seeing that in my clients right now, that I'm getting a different type of client coming in, people that have had an experience through lockdown, or an awakening, or a realization, or an epiphany moment. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that. I think the pandemic has taught us a lot about what's important to us in life. And what are your thoughts on the kind of maybe the global transformation that could potentially be happening right now?
Yeah. My thoughts are that at its most positive, what I've experienced is a surge of people being in service, supporting their local community, looking out for neighbours, connecting deeply with people around them, valuing carers and NHS staff, and a lot of positives. And looking at those sort of some of the guides to well-being, being in service to others is hugely important to the human psyche, and makes us feel good. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing that we feel good when we give or others. It's part of the glue of humans. Yeah. And so I see a huge surge of that. Yeah. And as much as I am so distressed by the impact on our creative industries and sector, particularly for me, the music sector. Yeah, I've seen a surge in personal creativity, right? And so lots of people in lockdown taking up things that they had not done or tried for ages. Right. My sister outlaw, Lulu Allison, she is a great artist, but she's also a great teacher. And she did an online drawing class, and she's just started a new one actually. Yeah. Called Under the Banner Middle Distance. I at some level, I didn't believe I could draw. So, but I gave it myself, because I know that's not true. And I got such pleasure just from an hour's drawing a week.
Yeah.
And she would set a theme or an idea, and off we'd go.
Yeah.
And so a surge of personal creativity was there as well. And then the valuing of nature as our greatest ally, and an immense source of personal joy and healing, I believe, to spend more and more time. And people, certainly in this country, when birdsong became really significant, people heard more, vehicle noise was less, pollution was less. There was a sense of nature breathing a big sigh of relief, and us loving it, and us loving it more.
And how do you think that these things that we've learned through lockdown will contribute to further happiness for us, if that makes sense?
Yeah, by giving ourselves more of them. And a recognition that time doesn't have to be the only time that we do these things. For me, one of the things was growing. So I grew veg I never thought I could grow. I'm right next to the sea, which is lovely. But we have gales, and the house is called Sea Spray. It's salty. But we've grown all kinds of things that I didn't think were possible. And it's still coming, the chard and the tomatoes and stuff.
That's brilliant.
Oh, that's given me such pleasure. And it's a little bit of connection with the soil and compost in my own space. And that's been a real pleasure as well. So and
I think what you're talking about here is, the joy is the thing that bring us joy that we maybe have forgotten, that we've never actually connected with, and I think, we can get so caught up, can't we, in the 9 to 5, working and walking the dog and the shopping and all that kind of stuff, that sometimes we forget to spend time doing the things that bring us joy. And from what I'm hearing from you, and I'm sure this is true for many, that you discovered many joys during lockdown, and would that be true?
Yeah, absolutely true. And I think also there was something about the quality of the connections with family and with friends. So deeper, longer conversations felt like they were being held. And what I knew that I missed and still miss is human touch, is hugging and connection. And I feel really concerned about that, on a bigger scale. But my partner Thea made a beautiful big plastic hugging sheet wall, and hugged her mother like I've never, and it was so loving. It was odd because there was this thing, but actually there was real human connection and touch and the feel of, and that was incredibly important. But I did notice that my Zoom calls with family, my conversations with friends were longer, were deeper than I would otherwise have, and I felt a yearning for them. We created a kind of a wish jar, which were things we were going to love doing when it was all over.
Wow, that's good.
And to some extent, it still isn't over. So
absolutely,
we continue to put. We're not going to forget that these are the things that we'd love to do more of.
And I think there's this kind of, I have this kind of fear. Well, it's quite a big fear actually, that we're going to go back to normal life. The whole world's going to go back to as it was, but we have learned so much that we can use taking forwards to become better people, living better lives. So what do you think the secret is to eventually, when things return to normal, if there will be that kind of normal, how do you think, what do you think the best strategy is for retaining the knowledge and the feelings and the emotions that we have felt during this time, and using them to live a better life as better people? What do you think? Is there a strategy for this? What can we do to help ourselves?
Well, part of it is about reflection. you know, what have I really loved that was different about these times?
Yeah.
What has really set me alight? What have I missed and want to do more of? So
Yeah.
I think for me, the key to happiness really is about recognizing what was absolutely true for me to do, what my
Right.
sense of purpose is,
Yeah.
but also what do I love? What do I really love?
Yeah.
And not having any kind of edit on that, going, no, I couldn't do that because, or
Yeah.
I'll. When I hear people saying, I'd love to,
Yeah.
I'd love to go to Africa. There's a inherent in that statement is, but.
Yes. Yeah.
But I could never afford it, or
Yeah.
but it would feel too selfish.
Yeah.
But it's too dangerous and it's never going to be all right. But I couldn't spend 10 hours on an airplane.
Yeah.
All of those can be swept out of the way.
Yeah.
with a I'm going to go to Africa, and and making it happen. I mean, it's a, you know, that may be beyond the stretch for some people.
Yeah.
But I know many young people who save, who work and save and save and save, and then they just make the trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and for that generation, it seemed until, you know, the restrictions on traveling, just that those possibilities opened up.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I was having this conversation this week with another friend, and we were talking about, you know, that sometimes we say that, you know, we wish we could do things, or we would love to do things one day, or, you know, the buts come in there. But actually what we don't realize is that we might not be able to go to Africa right now, but there will be a whole load of other things that we can do, you know, things that we can do tomorrow, next week, next month, to bring more joy into our life, to bring more laughter, to bring a sense of fulfillment, you know. And I think as human beings, we make a couple of mistakes when we're thinking about the future. We either think that we're going to have all the fun when we've retired and we've got more money, that sort of thing, you know, in 20 years time when the kids have grown up and left home. So we plan all of our future then, but we don't plan anything for short term. Or I've come across people that plan just short term, but don't think about the next sort of like 10, 15 years. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the being very future orientated is problematic. It's things, and from what I've experienced with myself and with many clients, is that they believe deep down all the conditions have to be right. Everything else has to be sorted before they can have what they want.
Yes. Yeah.
And very often that becomes a never.
Yeah.
Because actually stuff is never sorted out. I mean, look, I look around my own house. The shelves still aren't up over there that should. The you know, the camping gear's still all out after summer. It hasn't been put away. The wetsuits are still kicking around. You know, I haven't but I've done a lot more of what I love.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will get around to that when it's a, you know, when it's a vile, stormy winter day. I might clear up a bit or make some shelves, but actually there's life to be lived in the meantime.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, and I think, you know, you sorry, carry on.
So I urge anybody watching this to consider what they are putting off giving themselves that they'd really love, even if it is a relatively simple, small thing, and to go for it.
Yeah, brilliant. And what if the thing for them is, what if they've got this yearning to do something big that actually is possible, but at the moment they think there are too many buts or too many things in the way, you know, because I'm sure, like me, you'll have been through times where you want something so badly, but you just don't think you can do it right now, or you don't think it's possible. So maybe it's someone who has realized that through lockdown, they're not enjoying their job and they want to change their job, you know, but they think it's like such a big step. They have no idea where to start. So that kind of puts them off taking any action. What advice would you give to somebody like that?
Well, the advice is this, that really connect intuitively with a sense of what the next step is.
Right.
Look to be as in innocence as possible, and connect with it, and imagine it as a Fibonacci sequence in which you're taking the first bit of the curve. What's obvious about the action to take? And what's your end result? You know, for me, I was coached through leaving a job that I'd been in for 10 years. I felt completely stuck in it. I couldn't imagine myself out of it. It seemed too enormous to unravel. But through working with a coach, my partner now, Thea, I connected with, you know, that it was true for me to go on and do other things, and that I wanted to complete that job really powerfully. And that meant not just walking away from it, but thinking through how I could leave it in the best way possible. And really support others in it. And create a chunky redundancy as well. You know, so I could go on and do other stuff. And so I think, you know, taking the first steps, that's part of it, and connecting with you know, with an end result. And I also think it's really important in that to get away from what I call negative vision, which is if people focus on what they don't want, that somehow that's still where the focus is. So to focus on I'm in a job that's killing me, I need to leave, is not going to compel very much. But focusing on, you know, what I really want to do is to work with young people and spend more time out in nature and really enjoy living in a different place. You know, what compelled me was moving to Cornwall, and changing my sort of set of priorities and working in a new way, and working as a coach. So negative vision is not helpful. So if your choices or goals in life are, you know, I want to lose 3 stone by blah. Well, how about turning it around to I want to live a really healthy life, doing all the things I love doing until I'm 70 or 80. You know, turn it around. I think that helps too.
So I guess what you're saying, associate as much pleasure as possible into that future goal, so that you start to feel those good feelings. Which I guess will motivate you even more.
Well, emotion compels action. So absolutely. Once we get a sense of what it would feel like to be in that end result, well, that pulls us towards it.
And you know, sometimes I guess you've come across clients where you've worked with people that approach you and they're very sort of tentative about opening up and going to those places they need to go in order to transform. And you know, I think you probably experienced this, I've experienced it, where you just feel like you don't want to open the floodgates because everything will pour out and all the emotion will come out and the truth will come out, and that you don't like your job or you're not happy in a relationship, you know. And I think as human beings we all experience moments like that where we're afraid to go within to, you know, live a better life, if that makes sense. So how would you help someone, or what advice would you give to someone who is feeling that they want to change, but they're so worried about opening up emotionally and being honest and real and true to themselves, they just keep living the life they're living, restricted and unhappy?
Yes. So I think there's a real value in recognizing who can hold you well in that in that situation. So who can you spill it all out to? And be well held in that. And I think you know, what we resist persists. If unless we go there and really explore, you know, the dark stuff or the things that are holding us back or that are wrong, we don't have the capacity for to really go into joy as well. And I believe that fully in relation to everything from anger to grief. You know, those things need full expression.
Absolutely.
And you know, being with people who can hold you well in those, who can take it, who,
absolutely.
you know, aren't shoving a box of tissues at you, but are encouraging, you know, real full expression. And for me, and I know you model this, Maria, being vulnerable ourselves as coaches or as friends.
Yes, absolutely.
And saying your tears are welcome, or, you know, I'm really with you with this. But also exposing some of our own vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Encourages others. So modeling it for others is really important.
Definitely. And I think, you know, that kind of brings me on to my next question, really, is that, you know, I've sort of heard, you know, sort of opinions in the past about, you know, me being like exceptionally happy, and I'm a very happy person, as you'll know, you know, but I think there's a bit of misconception with coaches sometimes that we have these amazing lives 100% of the time, and we get it all right, and we make the right decisions, and we've got our lives perfect, you know, but and obviously me and you both know that is not true. So
absolutely not.
We have stuff that goes on, and you know, I think the way that I say to people is we still have stuff that goes on. We still have really bad days where we react wrongly, we wallow in self-pity, but we don't actually choose to stay in those emotions for long periods of time. And that's the way I kind of describe it. How would you describe it? And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've you know, I may be a coach, but I have a coach.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know, I ensure that I kind of unpack my stuff. I look at what's going on for me regularly. But life is messy, and things go wrong, and I mess up, and stuff happens. Usually, I think a key for me is taking responsibility for all of it.
Yes.
So when I say stuff happens, usually I've created it one way or another.
Right. Okay.
So I take full responsibility for what happens.
Yeah.
But focus creates reality. Where we put our focus really has a significant impact. So I will look at what's going on, and then I'll choose the higher over the lower. I will go, you know what, actually, I don't have to stay in this frame of mind, in this injured state. I've had an injury recently, and I thought, I can't, I see how I created that. I'm not going to allow it to fully limit my life. I'm going to get over it.
Yeah.
So being really clear about what I love what I'd love to create, what I'm going for, rather than the conditions currently.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what do you think then? Sort of going back to my original question is like, what do you think if there were 5 keys to happiness, contribute greatly to happiness? And I know you mentioned earlier giving to others you feel is very important with regards to making ourselves feel good. So what other things would you say contribute greatly towards happiness?
Being really clear about your compelling life goals.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Getting clear about what it is that you would really love.
Okay. Brilliant.
And having maybe no more than 10.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise it becomes too many. It's like too many priorities.
Yeah.
Another one for me is as often as possible being in innocence. So not assuming I know how this goes.
Right. Okay.
I know what happens here. Oh, I can draw on previous experience, but seeing things with fresh eyes, being open to new experiences, new connections, new ways of being. So it's sort of like a positivity, but it's more wide-eyed than that.
Okay.
I think that is really key.
What else?
Another one for me is being in nature, you know, just every day, if possible, having some nature connection. It might be tiny, but it has such a profound effect on human well-being. So giving it to yourself as often as possible. Connecting with others. So
Yeah.
It can, it can be isolating this time for many. So looking at all opportunities to connect with other people is really valuable. And then giving,
Giving, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
being in service, giving for its own sake, not for recognition or for a sense of smugness but it in itself, it creates well-being, but it also contributes to happiness in the world.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I know we think very similarly on this, and I call it living beyond, living beyond ourselves. And I regularly work with people with like depression, anxiety, and it's one of the best medicines, because when we suffer from those things, and I know because I've been there, we become very self-focused, and but when we kind of look outside of ourselves and start to offer service to others and give, expecting nothing in return, it brings others much joy, but it lifts us as well. There's that famous quote, "We rise by lifting others," and so I'm very much with you on that. So so it's been amazing to talk to you today, Thurstan. So you are a wealth of information, and I'm sure that you will have given people hope, you will inspired them, and maybe open the gateway to transformation for them with your words. But just before we finished, if people want to contact you, if they want to work with you, or if they're interested in any of your retreats, how do they go about that?
Easiest way, thurstancrockett.com. There aren't many Thurstan Crocketts out there. Back in the old days of the net, they called it a Google whack. Yeah. I'm easy to find.
Easy to find.
Yeah. And I love coaching and helping people achieve what they'd love.
Okay. And who do you like to work with? For anybody who's watching this right now, who do you want to work with?
Yeah, I love working with people who want to do great things. Yeah. I work with a lot of people in the sustainability sector, so in international development, in nature conservation, in kind of green logistics and so on. But I love working with people who want to live a full, purposeful life.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so thank you, Thurstan. So if you're interested in working with Thurstan, his website, as I said, is thurstancrockett.com. And thank you very much, Thurstan. It's been an amazing and very inspiring morning. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.